In a time when the headlines constantly tell you the Supreme Court is divided and fractured, something unprecedented happened. The court quietly issued a series of unanimous 9-0 rulings that are fundamentally reshaping the American legal landscape. While the media focused on political battles, these decisions, rare and historic, were quietly redefining the rules of life for millions of Americans. To put this in perspective, in the current term alone, the court issued 47 decisions. Out of those, only 3 were unanimous 9-0 votes, just 6.4% of all rulings. Stretching back from 2014 to 2024, only 41 out of 687 cases were unanimous. That's a tiny fraction, less than 6%, making these decisions extraordinary. But the significance isn't just in the numbers, it's who agreed. Conservatives and liberals, appointed by presidents from Trump to Obama, Bush, and earlier administrations, all signed the same opinions. This isn't about political ideology. This is constitutional clarity at its finest. Decisions so grounded in the text of the Constitution that they leave no room for dispute. From Fourth Amendment protections to labor law, restitution, agency powers, and state sovereignty, these rulings are already changing how the government interacts with everyday Americans. Let's start with Barnes versus Felix. Police departments long relied on the moment of threat doctrine, which protected officers from liability by focusing exclusively on the split second when a shooting occurred. The problem? If an officer's reckless behavior earlier escalated the situation, it was ignored. In a stunning 9-0 decision, the Supreme Court overturned this doctrine. Officers must now be evaluated based on the totality of circumstances, making them accountable for actions leading up to the moment of danger. The impact is immediate. Over 4,000 pending excessive force cases across multiple federal circuits now have a new legal standard. For gun owners, civil rights advocates, and ordinary citizens, this is arguably the most important Fourth Amendment update in decades. While safety is crucial, the court also addressed financial protections for workers. In EMD Sales versus Carrera, the court tackled the Fair Labor Standards Act, lowering the standard for proving overtime violations from clear and convincing evidence to preponderance of the evidence, or simply more likely than not. While it might sound like a corporate win at first glance, the reality is quite different. The court's intent was uniformity across all 50 states. Workers in Maryland no longer have more protections than those in Virginia, and corporations face a consistent legal framework. Experts estimate that this uniformity alone could save the American economy over $112 million annually in litigation costs. The court also addressed the problem of shadow sentences in Ellingberg versus United States, which affects thousands of formerly incarcerated Americans. For decades, federal restitution, the money you're ordered to pay after a conviction, was treated as civil, not criminal. This allowed the government to retroactively increase debts, sometimes decades after a sentence ended, keeping people trapped in financial penalties and preventing them from renting apartments, opening bank accounts, or rebuilding their lives. In a unanimous 9-0 decision, the court declared that restitution under the Mandatory Victims Restitution Act is criminal punishment, creating a path for formerly incarcerated individuals to reclaim their freedom. The impact is profound. Millions of dollars in unfair retroactive debt are now subject to constitutional scrutiny, fundamentally changing the justice system for ordinary Americans. You might be asking, why does a 9-0 vote matter so much more than a narrow 5-4 split? The answer lies in authority and permanence. A 5-4 ruling is fragile. It can be overturned if one justice retires or political winds shift. A 9-0 decision is a legal fortress, a statement to every lower court, every law enforcement agency, and every corporation that the debate is over. In the 2024-2025 term, the surge in these unanimous cases has already reshaped interpretations of crucial constitutional questions. The court's influence doesn't stop at individual rights. In 2025, it addressed presidential removal powers, ruling on whether the president can fire leaders of independent federal agencies at will. These decisions affect over 2 million federal employees, directly impacting interest rates, labor regulation, and government oversight. While empowering the president in some ways, the court simultaneously restricted agency authority, ensuring that bureaucrats cannot unilaterally make rules without judicial review. This dual action reflects the court's careful balance, empowering authority while protecting the public and the Constitution. Perhaps the most dramatic shift involves Chevron deference, a doctrine that allowed agencies like the ATF, EPA, and SEC to interpret vague laws without judicial oversight. In the Loper-Bright fallout, the Supreme Court ruled that judges, not bureaucrats, interpret the law. The implications are staggering. In the first 6 months of 2025 alone, lower courts invalidated 84% of challenged federal rules. Before, agencies won nearly 70% of these challenges. Today, the balance of power is shifting, dismantling decades of overreach and restoring constitutional authority. The court also reaffirmed citizens' right to a jury trial in SEC versus Jersey. For years, agencies resolved disputes internally, often without impartial adjudication. The court enforced the Seventh Amendment, ensuring civil penalties are decided in real courts with real juries. This affects Wall Street, small businesses, farmers, and gun dealers. The message is clear. The government cannot hide behind administrative hallways. It must face citizens in open court. Even the firearms industry was affected. In Smith & Wesson versus Mexico, the court blocked a $10 billion foreign lawsuit against American manufacturers under the PLCAA, preventing foreign governments from bankrupting U.S. companies over crimes committed abroad. Justice Elena Kagan wrote the opinion unanimously, protecting taxpayers and domestic industry while reaffirming that the law cannot be weaponized to punish innocent companies. Across these cases, a consistent theme emerges: power versus the people. The Supreme Court is dismantling doctrines that allowed unchecked agency authority, eliminating retroactive financial penalties, standardizing labor protections, and reaffirming constitutional liberties. The 9-0 rulings demonstrate that unity at the highest court is possible when legal reasoning is clear and undeniable. The implications extend further into state sovereignty. Under the 10th Amendment, powers not delegated to the federal government are reserved to the states. Over the decades, federal overreach forced states to implement hundreds of programs with strings attached. The court's new unanimous frameworks set clear constitutional limits, giving states greater control. Preliminary analysis estimates this could shift $67 billion in annual spending from federal to state discretion. This is not abstract. It affects how states implement education, transportation, Medicaid, environmental policy, and more. Timing is critical. Many of these rulings immediately impacted pending cases. Attorneys cited the new decisions within 72 hours, with some courts already applying them to reshape outcomes. For instance, the Barnes decision immediately changed the framework for thousands of excessive force cases. Similarly, EMD sales affected labor disputes across multiple circuits. These are not theoretical changes. They have real-world consequences for citizens, employees, businesses, and law enforcement. The court also clarified principles for administrative law. Using the doctrine of constitutional avoidance, the Supreme Court established a framework that affects hundreds of federal statutes and regulations. Agencies like the Department of Justice, Department of Labor, and Environmental Protection Agency may now need to reinterpret or rewrite rules to comply. Analysts estimate that 568 federal regulations could be impacted within the first year, reshaping federal governance. Even controversial issues like gun rights saw nuanced rulings. In Bondi v. Vandertok, Justice Gorsuch, known for pro-Second Amendment positions, upheld ATF regulations on ghost gun kits. The court prioritized textual law over politics, signaling that clarity and consistency matter more than ideology. This 7-2 decision reinforced that the court protects the Constitution above all else, stopping agency overreach without undermining congressional law. Across every ruling, the court has consistently emphasized accountability. Chevron deference is dead. Shadow sentences are curtailed. Bureaucrats can no longer define laws unilaterally. Citizens regain rights to fair trials and predictable laws. Corporations and state governments alike now operate under clear constitutional standards, reducing litigation costs and creating efficiency in administration. Experts estimate that, collectively, taxpayers could save billions of dollars over the coming years as a result. To summarize, these unanimous 9-0 rulings are reshaping American life in profound ways. 1. Physical safety. Barnes versus Felix protects citizens from excessive force. 2. Financial security. EMD sales ensures fair labor protections and uniform wage standards. 3. Justice for the formerly incarcerated. Ellingberg prevents retroactive shadow sentences. 4. Agency accountability. Chevron deference ends, and the doctrine of constitutional avoidance limits overreach. 5. Jury rights. SEC versus Jersey restores citizens' access to impartial adjudication. 6. Corporate protection. Smith & Wesson shields U.S. manufacturers from foreign legal attacks. 7. State sovereignty. The 10th Amendment is strengthened, returning billions of dollars of power to states. The era of unaccountable bureaucrats is ending. The era of constitutional clarity has arrived. From your paycheck and safety to state authority and corporate accountability, these rulings will shape America for decades. The 2026 Supreme Court term has only begun, and if this trend continues, more landmark 9-0 decisions are likely on the horizon. Understanding these rulings isn't about politics. It's about knowing how the law protects your freedom, your money, and your rights. The Supreme Court Ustas unprecedented unanimity is a reaffirmation of the Constitution as the final line of defense for the individual. Stay informed, share this information, and watch closely. The biggest 9-0 shockers may still be ahead.